I'm Chris Boyer with HospitalOnlineMarketing.com, and today I'm doing a very special phone interview with Lee Aase, who is the manager of syndication and social media for the Mayo Clinic, and we're right here on the phone together. Lee, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Really glad to be with you, Chris.
So Lee, tell me about how the Mayo Clinic initially started with your social media marketing. What were some of the compelling reasons, either market or business drivers, that caused you to begin embracing social media?
The thing that really got us interested in what we called new media at the time was the capability that we had to go directly to consumers, directly to patients and their families, to provide information that could sort of bypass the mainstream media, which we also saw were having difficulties economically, long before the current economic meltdown, that they were losing audience, that the attention was shifting to all these other places on the internet. And so as we looked at it, we said we can go directly to our audiences and provide information that they'd like to have. So we started using a series of MP3 files that we had for a daily radio segment that we were already producing, and we just said, hey, a podcast is just an RSS feed attached to some MP3 files. Let's create a podcast. We listed that in the iTunes podcast directory. This was about a month or two after the podcast directory had been developed on iTunes, and we were shocked, frankly, to see our podcast get featured on the front page of the directory. It was one of those kind of fluky things, but we saw our downloads go from about 900 a month to 74,000 a month in 1 month, and that helped get the attention, helped us get attention internally, that instead of just taking things that we already had with maybe a little bit of extra effort, we could provide some content that would be more tailored to the online medium.
So at a certain point, when did you start to realize, or when did the Mayo Clinic start to realize that you needed to formalize your outreach into more of a strategy?
Well, after 2005, we knew at that point that a 60-second podcast wasn't the optimal length. That once people, that the essence of the internet is the ability for people to find the information that they want, the in-depth information that they like. So we did take about a year and a half, I suppose, after that to look at what kind of things do we really want to do. I mean, how do we want to approach this? We sort of figured that we didn't want to spend a ton of money on it because the audiences were going to be small, but they would be targeted. And so we looked at how can we take what we're already producing for mainstream media and tailor it to the online medium. So we gave, that's where we looked at the 90-second daily or weekly television package that we were producing. We said, gosh, we're interviewing the doctor for 20 minutes and there's a lot of good conversation there, but only about 8 seconds of it actually gets on the air. Let's find ways that we can reclaim that. And so it was about 2007 that we said, let's make this a real strategy, think through it as in a real systematic way.
Now, Lee, I've seen you present a number of times, and you often talk about the low cost of entry for social media marketing. What do you mean specifically by that?
The cost of entry into social media is essentially zero. And that's because Twitter's free, Facebook's free, YouTube is free. Now, to do YouTube, you need to have a video camera, a video source of some kind. The cameras that we're using right now to produce this cost less than $200. And so it's extremely low cost to be able to produce content, to provide content. But the other part of it is that a big chunk of the whole idea of social media and social media marketing is listening. And listening, I mean, it does take time, it takes people. But the other point that I make is that you already have people on your team who are doing marketing or who are doing PR or other kinds of communications. And, it's a matter of how are they going to use their time. Are they going to use the traditional tools only, which involve expenditure of a lot of additional money, to buy space and ads or time? Or are they going to harness these tools that leverage relationships, that help them build relationships and listen and communicate more powerfully that way.
What are some of the online and social media tools that hospitals should use? You mentioned Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. What are some of the other tools that are out there that you would suggest that they look at?
At the base, you have the microblogging kind of environments like Twitter, and that's really the main one. And I guess the other point that I try to make is that you don't have to be everywhere. If you can look at what is, being the best in class in the various levels of the pyramid. So I guess there's things like Plurk and 12 Seconds TV and other kinds of really niche-y, small kind of players, but you do have limited time. But you should look at, okay, what's the chatter that's going out there that I can listen in on? And Twitter's the great place to hear that. Then I move up to YouTube, to Facebook is the next level, because I just saw it come out this week, 350 million users on, I'm going to have to update my slides because I've been saying 300 million. 350 million monthly users. I mean, that's clearly a critical mass of people that are, online and engaged, and a group that you can connect with. Then I have YouTube, and the reason YouTube's just a little bit higher on the pyramid is that it's a little more involved to produce a video than to do just a Facebook wall post or link to something there. And then on top I have blogs, and that's the one that I hadn't mentioned yet. And actually blogs are free to start. You can go to blogger.com or wordpress.com. That's the one that I personally have used and what we're using at Mayo. To start the blogs, it's free. You can, for a very ridiculously inexpensive investment, $75 to $100 a year or less, you can have a pretty full-functioned blog that has the look and feel of your website and is mapped to a subdomain of your main organizational domain. That's amazing when you think about it, that you can publish to the world for $100 a year.
When I work with other hospitals, they often are concerned about getting into social media because of the lack of managing their brand. Now, the Mayo Clinic has a pretty strong brand behind it. I just was wondering what some of the challenges you're finding with managing your brand on social media.
Well, I mean, I will say it took us a year and a half after we had the first podcast experience to say, hey, yeah, let's get into this in a bigger way. And we started out not doing blogs, partly, but it wasn't mainly because of brand concerns. It was more because we didn't want to have our highly compensated physicians spending all their time writing instead of seeing patients. And we didn't want to be hassling them to be giving us the blog content we needed. But that's where the video blogging came in. It made it just a lot easier to do. I think the back to more of the thrust of your question, I think people have an unrealistic estimation of how much they control their brand. Because if you look at the United Breaks Guitars video example, that wasn't a video that was posted on a blog that United built. I mean, it's really about if you're treating your customers or patients well, that kind of level of satisfaction that they have is going to be what's going to show up. And the conversations are happening already anyway, whether you are engaged in them or not.